From the cracked boombox speakers on Grandpa's old skiff to dockside jam boxes and the ultra-high fidelity sound systems of today's luxury yachts. However you listen to your favorite shows, this is the Stomping Grounds podcast by Boat Trader. No matter where you are, locked on land or cruising topside, we're bringing you stories from real boaters all across America who show us why they love their boat and what makes it the perfect vessel for their neck of the woods.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Ryan McVinney and we're thrilled to bring you the Stomping Grounds podcast, where we get to dive even deeper into learning about our nation's best boating towns and waterways by exploring them and talking with real locals. You'll get the most enjoyment out of this sister podcast after watching the primary Stomping Grounds video episode, which you can find a link to in the description. And if you are listening to this on a podcast app, just know that you're always invited to check out the video vodcast version of this show over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/boattrader. All right, everyone, we're here with Greg Skomal today, a state fisheries biologist in Massachusetts. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you and looking forward to learning a little bit about great white sharks and the work you do out here on the Outer Cape. Can you tell me again, what is your title and what is the type of work you're doing out on Cape Cod?
I am a fisheries biologist with the Massachusetts Division Marine Fisheries, which is a state resource agency. I've been with them for 34 years. And when I first started, if you told me I'd be doing research on white sharks, I would have said you're crazy. But I pretty much head up the white shark research program that we've got in the agency, and we do a lot of collaborative work with folks like the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy and others to study various aspects of white shark ecology, biology, and behavior.
Very cool. So our show, Stomping Grounds, is kind of all about different styles of boats and a variety of boating culture across America. So I thought maybe I'd kick off our conversation today asking you to that end, like, what type of boats do you generally use when you're doing your research in the field? And, are there any unique features you look for on a vessel that you're on board? And do you do any customizations to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the boat, really. A lot of people visualize us when we're working with white sharks being on giant research vessels. That's not necessary. As a matter of fact, that would hinder our work. What we use is a 24-foot pursuit with twin outboards it's a center console. It's the boat's called the Aleutian Dream. It's owned by one of the board members of the Conservancy, Captain John King, and it is a maneuverable boat. It's a fast boat. We can get from Chatham to Provincetown very quickly because any given day we can work all along the Outer Cape or even into Cape Cod Bay. The way it's been modified is like any harpoon boat would actually be modified. It's got an 11-foot pulpit on the bow, which allows me to walk out 11 feet ahead of the boat so I can tag fish while they're free swimming. It's got a tower as well, and the tower is ideal for Captain John to use to locate the sharks as he's communicating with the spotter pilot that's around. So, the method is pretty simple. We use a plane to locate sharks. That's communicated to John in the tower. He looks for the shark. I look for the shark from the pulpit. We come up next to him, and then we videotape them for a little bit, and then we place tags in them. And it's an ideal platform for that because of maneuverability. Sometimes we're going in circles around sharks. Other times, like I said, we're going great distances in a single day.
Gotcha. And is that a center console pursuit? So you can have like full 360 access?
Absolutely, yeah. So we can also hang instrumentation off the side of the boat, and the captain can be centered. It's an ideal vessel.
Gotcha. And so maybe the old Jaws joke, we're going to need a bigger boat, isn't so applicable here? You actually want a smaller maneuverable boat, maybe?
Yeah, for our work, it's great. Now, if I'm going to be handling sharks, capturing sharks, you could still use small boats. Sometimes people want to use bigger boats. For our purposes, what we're trying to do is tag sharks so that we're minimally invasive. We want them to be free swimming. We don't want to hook them. We don't want to drag them. We don't want to do any of those things. And this boat is ideal for that.
Gotcha. What kind of instrumentation? You mentioned instrumentation. What sort of instrumentation do you have on board?
Well, typical of any vessel, really. A GPS. We've got radar. We've got sounder. Those are the standard instruments you see on most boats. We also have, water temperature sensor there, so we get a sense of how that's changing over the course of the season. Basically, for every shark we encounter, we really want to know the depth. We want to know the water temperature, and we don't want to know exactly where we are. And so those basic instruments do that for us.
I noticed that you have twin engines. You mentioned you have twin engines on the Pursuit. So is that, I know that's always a good idea for going offshore. You got two motors in case you have a problem with one. How far offshore do you go looking for these sharks and tracking them?
Almost all of the sharks that we've tagged are within a mile of the beach. And so what we also need is a boat that can go up into shallow water and then can maneuver around breaking waves and surf. Mm-hmm. Just yesterday, for example, we tagged 3 white sharks. I did it in 3 feet of water, riding a wave.
Wow.
And so this boat allows us to do that. Having twin engines, of course, gives us, peace of mind. We're in one of those hairy situations where we've got a nice October surf and we're working between breaking waves.
Yep.
Having an engine cut out is never fun. So having a backup is good. Also, these are twin 150 Hondas. And again, it gives us speed and the ability to get great distances in short periods of time.
So, and they're in that shallow water. So, I think that leads me to a question about, swimmers and people that are out there on the sandbars and stuff. How afraid should people be of sharks in these waters? And are there any precautions people should take?
People have to realize that Cape Cod, along the outer Cape in particular, provides optimal habitat for white sharks hunting and feeding on gray seals. Now, the gray seals, for anyone who's been out to the Cape, this, Ryan, are all piled up on the outer Cape. Yep. In big groups. They're swimming along the shoreline. They're using sandbars to their advantage. The white sharks, in essence, have those seals pinned against the beach.
Right.
Their job is to try to attack and kill a seal. Now, all this is happening in shallow water. We found in one of our studies that these sharks spend at least 50% of their time in water less than 15 feet deep.
Wow.
And that's a lot of time, That's also the region, the area people are using for recreational activities, whether it be surfing, swimming, you name it, boogie boarding.
Yep.
And so you've got this predator-prey relationship, which is completely natural, white sharks attempting to kill seals, overlapping with human activities. So that, of course, has us concerned, has a lot of people concerned.
Yeah.
First and foremost, the probability of being bitten by one of these sharks is extremely low.
Yeah.
All right. But we have had some negative interactions. It started in 2012 when a swimmer was bitten. We've had paddleboards bitten. We've had kayaks bitten. And then we had a boogie boarder killed in 2018 and another swimmer bitten in 2018. So there is that potential.
Yep.
And so what I caution people to do is, first of all, get a sense of where you are, understand the beach you're going to be swimming at or recreating at. Realize these sharks can be in deep trenches. They don't necessarily like to go in water less than 5 feet deep.
Yep.
They will pass over a sandbar that is shallow, but they're typically in water greater than 5 feet deep. So if you've got 2 sandbars and a deep trench in between them, there could be a white shark lurking there to ambush a seal.
Right. Okay.
The mistakes are rare, but it does happen. And so if you're really, really concerned about white sharks, to be 100% safe, you don't go in the water.
Right.
But I always recommend to folks who want to go swimming, don't go in over your waist in those areas where white sharks are in high abundance.
Right. And now, I'm not sure about this. I've heard a lot of sort of folklore and legend around here. Is it so? I think there are a lot more seals here than there were late 60s, early 70s, even into the 80s, right? Somebody has told me that in 1972, they changed the law and they used to actually promote killing the seals, and now they're protected. Is that true? And is that what has brought a lot of the sharks back to the waters?
Yeah, that's basically it, Ryan. The Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed in 1972 to protect all marine mammals. Now, many of us are well aware of the fact that whale populations were driven to the brink of extinction. What a lot of people don't realize is so were most seal and sea lion populations, on the West Coast and the East Coast of the U.S.
Yeah.
And scientists and the general public realized that we needed to protect them. We had bounty systems in place where we removed and drove these populations down to very, very low levels over the course of the last century.
Yeah.
So now, after 50 years of protection, these seals have come back, and they've come back in big numbers. So they're, in essence, recolonizing areas where they previously existed. So I'm bumping into old timers on the Cape who will tell me, frankly, I don't remember these seals when I was a kid. They didn't exist here. This is a new phenomenon. And I just simply say to them, you're just not old enough to remember them. We wiped out these seals a long time ago.
Right.
But now that the population has recolonized the mainland U.S., Canada, now they went from somewhere, on the order of 10 or 20,000 seals to over 500,000 in the Western North Atlantic. White sharks are taking advantage of that. In essence, it's like a restaurant reopening.
Yeah.
And white sharks realizing that, this is their job. This is what they do.
Right.
White sharks eat seals. And so white sharks are moving into these shallow areas like they do in all other parts of the world to feed on this robust resource.
Right. I mean, it's a natural feeding grounds, basically.
It is. It's a good way to put it. It's basically the restoration of a natural ecosystem.
Yep.
Realize in the time period where they were all gone to now, in that interim period, we had Cape Cod explode as a tourist area.
Right.
And the development of all these recreational activities associated with the water. And so now we're in a bit of a quandary because we've got this overlap of this, the reopening of this restaurant overlapping with these human activities. And that's what certainly has folks concerned.
Yeah, I guess some of the oldest, saltiest lobstermen and fishermen I know out here have told me about that bounty system, I guess is what you mentioned, where they would get paid to actually kill seals, right?
That's exactly right. I think, one story I read, it was, you would kill a seal, remove its snout and bring it in and get $5.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Now, this might be more of a contentious or under-research issue, I'm not sure, but you mentioned you're taking water temperatures too. With climate change, has that had an impact with the amount of great whites that are in these waters as well?
We have historical records going back to the 1800s of white sharks occurring as far north as Newfoundland.
Okay. And
so we don't believe climate change is driving the presence of these animals in any way. It could, of course, change the arrival time, the residency, how long they're here, and their departure time. As we get longer and longer, perhaps summers, we may have longer residence of these animals in our areas. That's entirely possible.
Right.
As far as the white shark occurring in New England, well documented over time.
Yeah. Famously by Steven Spielberg, too, I suppose.
Yeah, and that little town of Amity.
Yeah. So migration patterns haven't necessarily changed much in the past few decades. It's just maybe they spend a little longer, depending when they arrive, et cetera. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, what has changed is I think that the white sharks have actually shifted inshore in response to the new restaurant, right?
Right.
If you have no seals on the beach, you're not going to have white sharks patrolling the shallows. There's no incentive. There's no reason to.
Right.
Right. You're not going to go to a restaurant that has no food, right? So you basically remain offshore. You feed on other things. But now that this robust seal population exists piled up on the shoreline, you're going to start visiting. So there has been a shift near shore, associated with the growing seal population.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's the intermingling of humans and seals now that are really causing the increased interactions between the sharks and people.
Well, yeah, you've got the overlap of human activities, and again, it's extremely rare, but when it happens, it can be devastating.
Yep. Yeah, and you see in our Stomping Grounds video, we talk about it. We drive by a group of, I don't know, at least 24 seals. And that's common out here. We're seeing hundreds of seals a day wherever we go. And in fact, to the point where I think a lot of people that come here as tourists, I always have somebody shouting to me, "Look, did you see the seal?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we saw 500 of them today." So do you guys have an opinion on the ecotourism that is sprouting up around great white sharks?
So far, it seems to be working quite well. I mean, we've got whale watch boats, right? And that's worked out well. We've got seal watch boats, that is making money for folks and also showing seals and showcasing seals to people. And now we got shark watch boats, in essence.
Yeah.
And for the most part, there's probably about 5 or 6 operators in small boats working with planes, and putting people on white sharks so they can see them for the first time. And what I've learned is people are willing to spend a lot of money to see a white shark. And so I think it's a good thing. My only concern is if too many people get into this business, we might need to regulate it to some extent.
Yeah.
But as of right now, they all seem to be getting along. They're, for the most part, charter fishermen that spend a little bit of their time, sometimes a lot of their time, showcasing sharks and doing eco tours. But so far, so good. And, I think it's a good thing.
That's cool. Yeah. And you don't want people to get too close to them and harass them, obviously, but it's been successful so far. Do you have any? I wanted to ask about that was Sharktivity. So I was actually out on Coast Guard Beach yesterday and the day before, and the little Sharktivity notifications were popping up for people that don't know about that app. It tells you if a shark is near you, right? And you told me, I think that was your group out there. Is that right?
Yeah, we were out yesterday. What the Sharktivity app does is it gives people a sense of where these animals are occurring. Some folks think that if they're not hearing from Sharktivity, that means there are no sharks around. By no means should this app be used as a public safety tool.
Okay.
All right. And, anytime we're on the water, like yesterday, and we're using a plane and we're spotting sharks, and I think we spotted probably 15 or 20 sharks yesterday, we'll report those to Sharktivity just to keep feeding the app and let people know what's going on out there.
Yep.
We tagged 3 out of those sharks, and all the rest we're already tagged. And so I think it's a great app, a great way for people to get involved. And you can report shark sightings through the app.
Yep.
And you can just see where these animals are occurring around Cape Cod.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, for instance, the Tin Boat Mafia, that whole group of people, we all have the app and we're all constantly looking at it. So it's cool to know that that's you guys out there. And we see the photos. You take photos of them as well, right?
Yeah. If you go to the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy webpage, which is atlanticwhiteshark.org, and you can click on the apps, you'll see the Sharktivity app, but you'll also see the White Shark Logbook and the White Shark Catalog. And if you click on those, you'll see where these sharks are going, through our acoustic detection data, so our tagging data. But you'll also see the catalog of over 400 white sharks that we have identified in the Cape Cod area over the last decade.
Yes. Interesting. That's really cool. Do the shark teeth fall out naturally? Is that like part of are they just always falling out? Do they lose them like humans, or do they grow with the shark?
The jaw of all sharks is really cool in that, think of the teeth as being on a conveyor belt, all right? And they basically just fold up with one tooth right behind the other, like this. And so the outer teeth will fall out eventually or break out when a shark bites something. Mm-hmm. And then there's another sharp tooth right there and another one right behind it. So you get this conveyor belt of teeth that are continuously growing.
Okay.
And so, if you find a shark's tooth on the beach, it doesn't mean that shark now has no teeth. It means that another tooth replaced it, and it ensures that the shark has a full complement of really sharp teeth to get its job done.
I see. So they just keep growing throughout the whole life cycle of the shark.
That's exactly right, Ryan.
Interesting. Cool. What are your concerns towards the future? I mean, I know, you guys are trying to document and research what's happening now. Looking to the future, what worries you, what concerns you, and what do you think the future holds, I guess?
What I'm concerned about in the future is finding that happy place where, recreational water users and sharks and seals can coexist, and that's hard to do. When it comes to these animals, whether it be the seals or the sharks, you get a full spectrum of opinions. I understand the fishermen that might want to get rid of the seals, or the surfer, or the recreational water user who wants to swim and doesn't want sharks here. And I also understand the person who believes that, these sharks are the best thing to happen to Cape Cod because they're making money doing eco tours or whatever.
Yep.
So we're going to always have that spectrum of opinions, but trying to find that happy place where we can coexist with these animals while allowing nature to take its course.
Yep.
People are concerned about the presence of, thousands of seals, and I understand that. And one of the things I'm asking people to do is let's let the sharks do their job. The shark population is here to naturally cull the seal population.
Right.
Now, it may not cull enough of them to satisfy some people, but let's just see what it can do over the course of several years. And I think that's the short-term solution.
Right. And so that's how your research and tagging and tracking sharks kind of helps keep swimmers safe too.
We're trying to. We're certainly trying to. If we can identify certain times of day, we always hear, the average swimmer goes, oh, I shouldn't swim at dawn and dusk. Now that might apply in some parts of the world to some species of sharks, but we've never seen that really in Cape Cod yet. Right. So we could say that as a blanket statement, but we really have no data to back that up. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find those periods of time or those tides or those depths or those locations where people might be more at risk.
Right.
And to educate the public about that.
So, okay, I'm just curious if I could ask you, have you always been into sharks and do you have a reverence for great white sharks specifically? Can you tell me about how you got into it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a nut, I think, when it comes to sharks. I really do find them to be cool animals. I think a lot of kids do. Sharks and dinosaurs, for me growing up, I just never grew out the shark part of it. And I thought the movie Jaws was fantastic. I thought Matt Hooper, the scientist in Jaws, was...
Richard Dreyfuss.
Somebody I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And, and I've been very lucky. I worked hard in college, went on for graduate degrees, and happened to be in Amity when the sharks showed up, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm pretty fortunate to be able to do a job that I dreamed of doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people see sharks in the water, and especially on Cape Cod, immediately assume that's a great white. What are the other species out here, and are great whites the most prevalent, or are there other types of sharks?
No, there's many species that occur in New England, probably about a dozen to 15 species of sharks. Some of them do not approach the shoreline, all right? So the coastal sharks, which include the white shark, also includes occasionally basking sharks, which can be confused, particularly along the North Shore. I get reports of white sharks that I'm fairly convinced, based on photographic evidence, they're baskers.
Yeah.
But we'll also get, sandbar sharks, sand tiger sharks. These are typically targeted by recreational surf fishermen going after sharks. They'll catch those. In the case of both species, they have to let them go.
Okay.
And of course, we all know about dogfish, which are sometimes referred to as sand sharks.
Yep.
They're kind of a nuisance for many of us who are going after striped bass and other species. But then as you move offshore, you get 3-4 miles offshore, you get into the blue sharks, the short fin makos, common thresher sharks, occasional tigers, even hammerheads these days.
Yep.
But those for the most part remain a good distance from land. So we do get a nice smattering. But when you're off Cape Cod, particularly on the outer Cape, and you see a big shark close to shore, 99.9% of the time that is a great white shark.
Okay, that's good to know. I think I have seen a basking one out here, and basking sharks are pretty much harmless to people, right?
Yeah, I always refer to them as whales trapped in the body of sharks. They feed on plankton, tiny little shrimp-like creatures. So yeah, they're completely harmless. They're beautiful. I've done a lot of diving with basking sharks. Did a lot of research on them before the white sharks showed up, and they used to be more prevalent on the outer Cape. This past spring, in May, we had a lot of reports of basking sharks, and then we went out in August to go try to tag some, and they were all gone. So,
okay.
They tend to move up into colder areas like the Gulf of Maine and the eastern shore, the Scotian Shelf and Canadian waters, and then they'll start moving back through this time of year.
Interesting. And so, our show, Stomping Grounds, is all about boaters and boating. So are you a boater yourself? Have you always been a boater?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on boats my whole career for over, almost 40 years. And from big, giant research vessels to the smaller vessels we're using these days. But I'm also a boat owner. I have a 23 Outrage Boston whaler.
Nice.
With a single 225 horsepower engine on it. It's moored literally a block from my house here, and it's still in the water. And although I have to admit I haven't been using it much because of other kid activities on weekends, but I'm hoping to get out at least one more time and target some of the fishes that I live near in Buzzards Bay. Yeah, I love boating. I've had boats for most of my adult life, and like most boaters, I want a bigger boat.
yeah, exactly.
But I can't afford one just yet.
You've got a good one, though. The Whaler Outrages are awesome boats. We work with Boston Whaler a lot, so I get on those boats frequently. And Nauset Marine over here on the Outer Cape is another great whaler dealer and service center. So, all right, well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been really interesting, a lot of cool insights. I learned a lot. Is there anything else you want to mention before we go?
No, I mean, I work for the Massachusetts Division Marine Fisheries. They've been very supportive of our work over the years, but in particular, the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. If folks want to learn more about our white shark research, go to their social media pages, go to their website, and visit their shark centers, because all of our research and some really good visuals are in those centers. So I encourage folks to educate themselves about this species. And I think people are, I think attitudes are changing. These are not killing machines. They're actually just, big fish.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. Everyone should check that out. And thanks for the work you do. And thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me. Good luck.
Good luck, Greg. Thanks. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to our show. If you liked what you heard, subscribe, follow, or favorite on whatever platform you enjoyed the episode. Even better, share it with a friend or leave us a review or comment. And we'll see you on the next one. Over and out.